Are you suffering from Zoom fatigue? Do you feel disconnected from the people you work with? Well, let's solve that with a walk and talk over some coffee. Good morning. This is Virtual Coffee Chat with Lewis for Think Remote. I am Lewis. This is my coffee, and we're going to talk about walk and talk while drinking coffee. I'm not going to walk while drinking coffee. That would be dangerous and irresponsible. But walk and talk is a really nice way of simultaneously reducing Zoom fatigue and bonding with your fellow teammates or employees or employers or whatever the relationship is there. Credit where it is due. This is a tip that I received early on in my podcasting, in my doing podcasts about remote work from MailChimp's Nassim Kamal. He is, I believe, right now the head of the mobile engineering team at MailChimp. And he gave me this tip that has constantly impressed everyone that I pass it on to, CEOs, presidents, other podcast guests. And it really is something very simple, yet quite special. Now, you do have a kind of a requirement for this. You need to have a nice internet connection, mobile internet connection, right? Let's say 4G or 5G in order to have a clear conversation. But apart from that, the point is that when you do a one-on-one, or at least on some one-on-ones, and you don't really, and visual aids aren't really critical, instead of taking it from your workspace in a Zoom, you go out for a walk and the other person goes out for a walk as well. So you are both walking and talking. This resonates deeply with me because on my first job, I had a very demanding boss. He worked himself to the bone, and he didn't expect his employees to work themselves to the bone exactly as they did, but he expected it in proportion. But still, one of my happiest memories from my first job was at the end of the day when, after being really tired, we actually would finish at the same time, right? And we would get out of the office and we'd start, walking because he lived nearby and I lived nearby too, though I also brought my car because I was lazy, but he lived nearby. So we would just, I would walk him to his place and we would often just go past his place and keep on talking. And we'd be doing rounds around the block, just, talking about work, sometimes about life, but mostly discussing work. And it was really pleasant, even though we just left a 10-hour day or something like that. So that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart and experience. And right now, that's happened actually a couple of times since I've gone remote, only the other person isn't there, right? And it's much less exhausting than a Zoom call because, well, of two reasons, right? Number one, there's no visual stimulation, or the visual stimulation is outside. um, Number two, you're walking, which is healthy for you, right? And it helps your mind. Paradoxically, it helps your mind engage better with what is being said, with what the other person is saying, right? So that's a situation that you can readily emulate with anyone working with you, right? All that you need to do is, plan ahead, and instead of, obviously, if weather conditions permit, but plan ahead and have that one-on-one call on your phones. It's actually matches up with the news that was released uh, last week about a study that says that when you don't have visual stimulation, you are more tuned in to the other person's audio cues. So you actually are more engaged in the conversation. But apart from that, it's just really pleasant to virtualize that sensation of going out for a walk with someone. Your brain just works better when you're out for a walk, when you're in nature, maybe you're in an interesting city street. Of course, pay attention to the traffic and all that. Don't get run over by my by my advice. I would really not enjoy having that liability. But you'll be surprised at how much you can bond with people like this, especially, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense in a group call because the dynamics are a bit different. I've personally never tried it, but I would feel that if there were like 5 people walking and talking, that would just be a mess. But when it's just the 2 of us, it allows you to connect because you're sharing an activity together. And sure, now you need to tone down your need for perfection, because cars will honk, right? Wind will sometimes disrupt the flow of the conversation. There's all kinds of noises that we cannot control. But as long as both sides have a steady, stable connection, and maybe even use something nice to help you, right? Some nice hardware to help you listen and be listened to better. For example, my current boss, the president of Distant Job, is a big fan of the original wired iPhone headset. Right? For some reason, you can just listen very well, very clearly with that headset on, with those earplugs on, and the microphone is actually pretty high quality and good at avoiding, translating the wind to the other side. So as long as you have you don't need to have the optimal conditions, because let's face it, when you're outside, the optimal conditions will never happen. But if you have a pretty good hardware solution and a pretty good connection, you will find out that this will make your one-on-ones much more powerful, much more interesting, and you will leave them with a clearer picture of what the other person is thinking, probably with more ideas, because weird as it sounds, it's pretty much proven by now that people have better ideas when they're walking, right? And you're going to feel closer to them. So plus one less Zoom call, right? One less time of the day that you're staring at someone speaking on a screen, as you're doing right now. But I hope that my coffee at least makes it a bit more pleasant, or less unpleasant. You pick. In any case, this was Virtual Coffee Chat with Louis for Think Remote. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and also head to thinkremote.com. We are still, at the time of recording, still offering some standing guests for the people who subscribe to our newsletter. So don't miss on that. That's thinkremote.com. See you tomorrow.